All right, welcome to the Armchair Commanders podcast. My name is John,
And I'm Jack.
and this week we are reviewing When the Wind Blows. And this was your selection, Jack, and all I have to say is, what the fuck did you make me watch?
I thought I thought this podcast could use a little brightening, so I picked a zany feel good comedy.
Yeah, I felt so great watching this.
Yeah, it really lifts up your spirits, doesn't it? But
So, when did you first find or see this film?
so I heard about it when a YouTuber I like covered it. I don't suppose you've ever heard of Rebel Taxi.
I have not.
Uh, well, his whole thing is like animation, usually from the either 90s or 2000s nostalgia. But he did a video on 5 hidden gems of animation, and this was one of them that he recommended.
Hmm.
He did give a warning that it was really depressing.
It was. It was.
You
What
know
I
me, I
will.
just can't resist a good animated movie about an atomic bombing.
Oh yeah, that's exactly where we started with our show.
Mm-hmm.
Was another animated film about nuclear war.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, when I first saw this, like if you look like at the cover art we have for this episode, or even if you just Google this film and you see the two main characters in this film, you're like, what kind of like third rate shitty cartoon are we watching this week? But I mean, honestly, it was such an interesting animation style because obviously you had the very simplistic cartoon aspect to it of the characters. But like every single time that you shifted perspectives from like one room of the house to another, like the background turned into like a Wallace and Gromit set, and it just I like every time that happened, it made me pay attention more because I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Whoa, this is kind of trippy."
Yeah, the
That
juxtaposition of like the 2D characters, especially that scene when he's walking down the hall in the beginning where he himself is 2D, but the walls in the background are 3D.
right, or like when they're putting on the like paper sacks, and
Mm-hmm.
like the paper sacks are very much like a three-dimensional kind of feeling or view, even though the characters inside of them are two-dimensional. It was just the constantly shift, like it's all animated, but the constant shifting between the types of animation just, you know if the story doesn't keep you engaged, just the cinematography will.
And that's another thing I was going to bring up, how earlier in the movie when he's fucking around with the sack, how it's 2D, but at the end of the movie when they're crawling in their sacks, it's 3D. It changes styles on us.
Right.
Mm, man, yeah, and this started out like really clean and beautiful looking, but after the bomb everything just went to shit. Like it looked like their house is trashed, it looks dirty, and there's no green and outside, it's all black and burnt out wasteland.
That was something I kind of found funny, was not the whole like nuclear wasteland part of it, but the you know before the bombing, they're kind of what you expect to be a stereotypical like English couple from like the 60s or 70s. And it's like uh the female character, her name is Hilda, right?
Yep. Hilda
Like,
Bog.
yeah, Hilda reminds me a lot of the character Muriel from Courage the Cowardly Dog. Like just so completely oblivious and in her own world. Like, here her husband is like trying to prepare for a nuclear blast, and she's like, don't scuff up the windowsills. Don't use the good pillows. Like not just completely unfazed by it all.
The cake is burning.
Oh my god. The cake is burning. The cake is burning. The cake is burning.
And yeah, I'm sure there's at least a million of Muriels and Hildas across the British Isles. And which brings us to the bomb scene itself. What did you think of it?
Um, I don't know what I was expecting from it, but this it was another moment where the constantly shifting of animation styles really grabbed my attention. Almost to the point that I paid less attention to the fact that this is the scene that the bomb is going off, versus like the house kind of taking on that three-dimensional look, and then it like pans to like a 4 or 5 car like pile up on a highway, but it's a very like rough sketch kind of look type deal. um it definitely got the point across that the atomic bomb was going off, but again, I think that part of the storytelling kind of took a back seat to the shifting cinematography of it.
Man, in the graphic novel, which I did not read, but I really should, because I can't read. But the atomic bomb scene, the build up is much the same, but notably, he doesn't call her a stupid bitch. Um, they get to the
Get
shelter
in
on
the
time.
bunker, you stupid bitch!
They get there in time, and you hear the blast. Well, in the book, the next 2 pages are just completely red and bright blast. Like it takes up an entire 2 pages, and then the next page, the first couple of panels are distorted as if the heat and the force are distorting them, and then the distortion gradually gets lesser and lesser as the bomb calms down, and then it like shifts to normal. It just shows like their feet sticking out of the shelter, and one of them says, "Well then," or something delightfully English.
Right. I love the prior to the blast. There's that radio transmission where they're like, we believe this conflict to escalate in the next couple of days. And he's like, 2 or 3 days? Like, what conflict in the history of ever has had a 2 to 3 day, like, heads up?
Well, the invasion of Poland, the
I
invasion
mean,
of Denmark, they didn't give a lot of warning.
I, but anyways, he's like, I'm going to run to the store and get us our 2 weeks supply of food because that's what our pamphlet says. And I love the fact that he's just like going off of a local government pamphlet to do all of his stuff. But then he comes back from the supermarket and it's like a thing of crackers, like some Christmas pudding and some other miscellaneous things. He's like, oh, there seems to have been some panic purchasing at the supermarket. It's okay. When this all blows over, I'll do another run in a couple of weeks. And it's like I it made me think of like the early days of COVID. I don't know if like you experienced this out in South Dakota, but like here in Colorado, people did massive amounts of like panic purchasing. And it was when I saw that scene at first, I'm like, man, you're a fucking idiot. Like, ain't going to be shit left after an atomic blast, dude. Like, you missed out on the prepping train. But then I remembered like back to the early days of the pandemic and all the lockdowns and stuff, and like going to the supermarket because it's like, oh, I need a single bag of rice because that's what we're cooking, or we're using a recipe that needs rice for dinner tonight and we're just running low. And just going there and all the shelves are empty, and like not even being concerned about it, just being pissed off, just being like, God, these people are fucking stupid. And it's like, no, I am this dipshit now, you know.
Pandemic. Good times. Good times.
I found his but from that perspective, I found his character very interesting because, the movie starts off with him being like in tune with like world events, like he keeps up on it. Like when they sit down to listen to the radio, it's to the station that does news, and he's very like proper and following like governmental guidelines and all that stuff. And it's like you can see he takes it seriously. He keeps his eyes on the situation and like wants to be the good British citizen, but he does like you would think somebody who's living what I'm presuming this movie to be is in the height of the Cold War.
Yeah,
Like,
it was modern when it was released, so 1986.
okay, so we're on the tail end of the Cold War at this point.
But yeah, the
But
fears
this
are
dude
very.
is but this dude is old enough to have lived through the height of the Cold War, and if he was genuinely concerned about it, it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that he takes all this stuff seriously, yet did zero prep work for it.
He probably just didn't care about it until it became his problem, i.e., the news and the prime minister talking about looming atomic war. And
Right.
I bet it was the brochures they published because those are based on real brochures that were disseminated to the British public in the 80s. And yes, they were infamous for being contradictory and not very clear on what to do with certain things they listed. And such as, painting your window and not explaining why.
Yeah, I could see how that could lead to problems. Um, but also like just the whole like painting windows, like you could see like the dude was again, it kind of goes to like he's educated enough to be concerned, but not educated enough to like actually be smart about it. Because he like paints the windows, and his wife's like, "What are you doing this for?" He's like, "Oh, it's to block the radiation or the flash or whatever." Um, but he doesn't know specifically like what radiation poisoning looks like as they both experience it. Um, One of my favorite lines in this movie, besides the cake is burning, um, is Hilda saying like, "I don't see any fallouts, therefore it can't be hurting me." And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not
Oof.
how fucking radiation works.
Oof. Yeah. And you'd think he would know more. Like early in the film, he says something about radiation, right?
Well, he mentions Hiroshima a lot, so it's like it.
And and then later on in the film, he's like, I remember hearing a lot of people died after Hiroshima. I don't remember why though. But they were less prepared than us, so that's probably why.
Yeah, the like utter and complete faith in the fact that like the government was going to be completely fine, and like, oh, there will be medical vehicles that come by any day now. um
I reckon
the
Tom's will be open in a couple days.
yeah, the perspective that I found to be super interesting was the both of these characters were kids during World War II. And they portray that like they both share their like individual experiences of like, oh, this was what my family did in the bunker during the Blitz and all that stuff. And like, uh, the male character, he, um, we get a little side tangent with him where he's like, they'll need every able-bodied man, and it shows him like filling all these different roles that he sees himself being like the upright, good British citizen. Um, so for me, it was interesting seeing them being like romanticizing World War II, because I'm sure the British people going through the Blitz was very much that like stiff upper lip mentality that we've talked about before. Um, and I think these characters were pretty much equating like, oh, a nuclear war will be just like the Blitz. Like we'll we'll just stick it out, and the government will
Hmm.
be fine, and as long as we survive the blast, everything will go back to normal after a couple of weeks. And it's like, no, you don't understand. Like World War III is going to be the end of everything.
Yeah, man. And he keeps naively holding on to the hope. I don't even know if I could call it hope, but belief. Excuse me. That this is going to be yet another conventional war where we have that scene where he's like, "Oh, I'd imagine the Americans would parachute in and take what the Russians have stolen and liberate us just like last time," and blah blah blah. Old Montgomery, and then his wife has to remind him that Montgomery isn't prime minister or general anymore. Also, Montgomery died 10 years before this movie premiered, but I don't think they know
Oh yeah,
that.
he keeps mentioning like Churchill and whatnot.
Like, I hate to tell you this, man, but those days are over. Now you just don't know where you stand. I liked that Joseph Stalin.
Oh my god,
And I think they even call him like Uncle Joe at one point.
that Joe Stalin is a bad egg.
Yeah, these no, I don't think I'd call these people stupid by any stretch of the word. They're just naive and misinformed.
Maybe ignorant would be a better phrase for them.
Another one is in denial
Yeah.
because he keeps coming up with excuses, each more lame than the last, about why they're experiencing what they're experiencing. And then he outright tells his own wife, whose hair is falling out, "Oh, you're fine. Women don't go bald." Like, bro, you just watched her pull out her hair.
It's okay. Everybody vomits into the fireplace from time to time.
It's okay. It's normal to have bloody diarrhea occasionally. I mean, we're
Wait,
English
wait,
after all.
wait. Bloody diarrhea, is it normal?
I mean, keep in mind, this is 1986. They didn't have Chipotle in London yet.
Oh, I was going to say it's like a weekly occurrence for me.
Yeah. Yes, but you eat Chipotle every night.
Every other.
Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. You got me. You sure showed me.
Also, Chipotle does not sponsor us, but they could.
Yeah. Along
After
with
that's
Chipotle.
stellar. Chipotle. How else are you going to get the bloodstains out of your underwear? You shouldn't be shitting blood.
He just spends the episode hung up on that. But yeah, this movie, it was quite the doozy. Quite the doozy, man. And
I'm
it's,
I'm ashamed that we didn't get to watch it together because
yeah, real bummer, but you know how schedules work.
yeah.
Yeah, I bet you had quite the reactions to this.
Yeah, there was a lot of what the fuck am I watching being said throughout this film.
And I don't know if it was intentional, but there are several times where it shows like a grain across the screen as if, radiation. And
See, that wasn't something I had noticed, so thank you for bringing that to my attention.
and after one of the characters mentions Fallout, there's a lot of shots that are zoomed in on them like touching things or sweeping. And
Hmm.
then of course there's the whole rainwater thing, which they're dead. They're basically already dead after that.
Right. Imagine drinking irradiated rainwater.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It brings up the question: would you want to survive a nuclear war?
I
like
mean, if I was better
if
prepared than them, yes.
if things kicked off tomorrow, let's say, would you want to try and survive Fallout world?
So, how much warning do I get?
Let's say 3 hours.
Orgy.
Blood orgy, blood orgy.
Well, yeah, that's my answer. Let's hear yours.
I think I would go with the instant incineration.
Do you remember that Simpsons where he reads that bit? Like, live every day like it's your last, and then it shows him curled up and crying.
I just do I think I have the survival abilities to last for a little bit, like a couple of weeks or a month or whatever? Yeah, absolutely. But that's going to be a shitty month. Also, I would rather have an instantaneous, like, incinerated by the bomb death as opposed to the weeks or months of radiation poisoning killing me.
It'll all go away eventually. And like you said, maybe a couple weeks to a couple months, maybe even a year. But, Hiroshima cleared up pretty quickly, but that was just one comparatively small bomb. And
Yeah, that's not like an entire hemisphere.
mind you, um, so you have you played Fallout?
I have not,
Well,
mostly
well,
because I know myself too well, and if I play Fallout, I will go down a deep, deep hole of not taking care of myself. So,
no, joke's on you. I never take care of myself. Anyway, well, I think you should, but people have pointed out that it's been 200 years since the nuclear war, and even dirty nukes, the radiation should have cleared up by then. But then you remember that this particular future basically runs almost entirely on nuclear energy. So there's this fan theory that it's not coming from the bombs themselves, it's coming from shit leaking into the atmosphere and raining, hence
hmm.
fallout. But yeah, if I had a spot in a decent vault or something, then maybe I could survive, just wait it out. But no, the radiation would probably kill me sooner or later if I just try to thug it out and then out in the open.
See, I think. Well, never mind. You live out in South Dakota, where a bunch of missile silos are, so you probably would get targeted too.
And the Oahe Dam, they definitely target that to take out the power grid. So I'm basically already fucked.
Yeah, living in Denver, obviously, with it being a major city, that would get wiped off the map. Plus, NORAD's like an hour south of me, so
Really?
yeah.
Oh yeah, you're screwed. Hate to say it,
It,
buddy, but would you eat boo for survival?
no, I
Because I
could
know
not
you
do
would. I know you wouldn't eat tux.
no.
Never.
Henry, I might eat.
Okay, yeah.
He's got more meat on his bones.
I was originally gonna call him Steak. In a desperate bid for survival, John killed Henry and ate him, and then the bombs fell.
I didn't get my King Super's grocery pickup order. I
uh,
was mildly inconvenienced and hungry.
yeah. What else about this movie? It was. Yeah, the mixed styles, like real time, real life, 3D, 2D. The part when the bomb's going off, and then it cuts to that flashback of their life, like getting married and living together. That was a little weird, but I'm glad they showed that, because then the scene of it breaking hit more.
Yeah, it definitely makes you more vested in them as characters. Like, obviously, this entire film revolves around these two characters over the course of like 2 or 3 weeks. But like having that moment truly kind of solidifies the viewer caring about them. Because before it's just like, oh, here's two idiots who happen to survive a nuclear blast, versus that scene actually like humanizes them.
And I probably could have done without that one scene where Hilda's fantasizing while putting away the laundry. That didn't need to see that.
Yeah, well,
I guess it just shows how spacey and head in the clouds she is. But we kind of already gathered that. But
the cake is burning.
cake is burning.
What did you think about the visual representation of the Russian soldier? Like when they're talking about, if a Russian comes through our front door, am I supposed to kill him? And then it's like just it is as bad as any piece of, like, I thought anyways, it is bad as any like World War II propaganda of like a Japanese or a German soldier, where it's like this Russian soldier is like 8 feet tall, like big and
Big and
burly
burly
and hairy and kind
and
of,
violent.
yeah, and has like kind of like sort of like Mongolian features to them for some odd reason. I like, and is wearing a big fur coat, and I was like, I get we're like fantasizing the enemy here, but this
Is a little
I,
weird.
I'm like, this is the first time I felt a depiction of a Russian being problematic in my life. I didn't know that was possible.
Which, I don't know. Ivan Drago from
I will break you.
I Would Break You. There were, like, looking back on it, there were quite a few problematic portrayals of Russians around this time, because that thing going on, the Cold War, and we got to make them look as evil and ugly as possible because they're the bad guys and we're the awesome based capitalists. Um,
Pip pip cheerio. The government will be by with their pharmacy wagons anytime now.
yep, they probably got an antidote.
Make
We'll
us
be
feel
right as
right as
rain.
rain.
Yeah,
Right as rain.
there's even a part in the graphic novel towards the end where he, to lift their spirits, stands up and dances and sings a song about smiling while blood is flowing from his mouth and his eyes are sunken and sallow.
I gotta
Oh
say,
man.
the more depressing side of his artistic nature was at the end when they're, I don't know, it kind of makes sense from, so at the end of the film, they have these paper sacks, and for whatever reason, they have a piece of information that's like, in case of a nuclear attack, jump inside with a paper sack, and it's like, why? It's not going to protect you from radiation, but they believe it does. And it's kind of like, how you hear about people who are suffering from hypothermia that like start stripping their clothes off
Yeah,
when they're about to
paradoxical
die.
undressing.
Yeah. And I was like, is this what happens when you get radiation poisoning? Is you just stuff yourself into a paper sack and then lay down and die? Like,
So there's kind of a fan theory to this. Um that I believe I heard something like, after she starts pulling her hair out, she realizes how fucked they are. So she's the one that has the idea, let's get in our sacks again. And the reason this is, they say, is because in said brochures, they even have a section on what to do with your dead. What you're supposed to do is use the aforementioned sacks to put the body in, and then put like a tag or a sticker on it with the details about the person's life, details about the person, like their name, their address, and what they died from specifically. And then you're supposed to get that out of your shelter, usually outside or just in a room you don't use a lot. So
Hmm.
there's a theory that despite the fact she doesn't really seem to know about the brochure, she somehow knows about that. And she realizes she's fucked but doesn't want to say it out loud. So she's like, oh, let's just get it in our sacks.
Oh,
At least they're
guess
still
it.
they're making jokes about it while they do it too. And he bungles up a prayer, but he gets through
Yeah,
it
he
anyway.
changes. Well, yeah, he changes a prayer into the charge of the light brigade or something like that.
Yeah, the charge of the light brigade, which is worth
It's,
noting because
she's
that
like, please stop.
that poem that he's reciting, half a league, half a league, half a league onward into the valley of death rode the 600. That whole poem is about how blind obedience could get you killed. And what's this movie about other than blind obedience getting these people killed? Blind faith. Well, misplaced faith.
I thought it was about how much of a stupid bitch Hilda was.
Get in the shelter, you stupid bitch.
I will not be talked to this way.
Get in the goddamn.
The cake is burning.
The cake is burning. The cake is burning. And just how empty everything is. And that one part in the movie where they call their son and he's drunk as shit, like laughing and crying and freaking out and just like having a breakdown.
That'd
And
be
then they're
me.
like, oh yeah, he probably got out in time. He's a smart boy. He's fucking dead. He's
No,
in
he went
London.
out.
So
No, he went out the way I would have. Just fetal position.
yep, he's toast. If not toast, then just a skid mark on the ground, probably.
It's a clever alliteration there.
Thank you, man. This is a very British movie. How their first instinct is to make tea,
Right.
a nice cuppa. Hmm. So I think it's time. What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking a very refreshing Sprite with a couple of slices of lime because I have to work tomorrow, so I couldn't really indulge in the alcohol.
I'm drinking a nice Gatorade Zero.
I think
Very
this is the first
tasty.
episode. I think this is the first episode where we both haven't had alcohol.
Not true. We did have no alcohol that one time we had that guest.
Oh yes, that correct. Never mind. Back when we had John from the Tattooed Historian on.
Right. The other John.
Yeah, arguably the smarter one too, but
But not the more handsome.
oh,
Sorry.
thanks.
But also, that's David Bowie in the beginning. Me gusta.
Big Bowie
Very,
fan, are you?
see, very, very nice. Like that song. Hold on, let me just pull up the lyrics to that because it's very relevant. Lyrics. So long, child, I'm on my way. After all is done, don't be down. It's all in the past, though you may be afraid. Oh, oh no. So long, child. It's awful dark, and I've never felt the sun. I daren't think of when the wind blows. Life burns a savage wound, angry and wrong. Trusting a twisted word, you'll run away. You'll take him home, you'll spit and taunt him, but they won't believe you, no matter what you'll say. So long, child. It's awful dark. Hmm. Thank you. Bongo noises.
Bring that to open mic night. See if anybody catches on.
Oh, y'all are a bunch of flat tires. I did partially as a joke for there was like this informal poetry group at USD where I just read Modern Man by George Carlin, and they ate that shit up. But then I came clean and I admitted I plagiarized it.
I remember going to an open mic night uh, at USD once for extra credit reasons,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember there was an English professor there that was sharing a piece of poetry, and I was kind of half listening to it, but it was like a collection of sentences that really didn't have anything to do with each other, and then like in the middle of the poem, she just said the word bukake, just like very emphasized it, and I was like, "Fucking what?" And then nothing else in the poem had to do with that word. I'm like, "What? Why? I don't. I'm not creative. Explain this to me."
For our listeners, bukkake is a very
No.
famous Japanese puzzle where you can't have the repeating numbers in the same row or area.
Oh yeah, that's what that is.
Yep.
Just Google bukake
Nothing
puzzles.
else. Maybe it is something else, but John won't tell me what it is.
You're not old enough.
Thanks. Ass.
I think it's about time we rate this film. What do you think?
Of course. God damn it. So I gotta say I really like this movie. Do you want to come up with the the rating system this time?
Yeah, I can do that. I think 1 to 5 pamphlets because the pamphlet is really an unsung hero in this story.
It tried.
Yeah, it tried. Well, they're so heavily reliant on it, and like so much of the dialogue is derived from the pamphlets, and it also is a symbol of like their trust in the government. So
Hmm.
let's do 1 to 5 pamphlets.
Well, I give this 5 pamphlets out of flat five. Sorry, I
Okay.
love depressing things. It makes me feel feelings.
I love depressing things. It makes me so happy.
Not close enough. Yeah.
I would give this. mm, it's hard. I think it is worthy of a 5 out of 5 pamphlet, but I think I'll give it 4 out of 5 pamphlets just because if you are not the kind of person who like appreciates artsy things or things that are trying to be artsy, then I think a lot of the good aspects of this film are not going to hit you the way that they ought to. Um, so I definitely think the 5 out of 5 rating is for a narrower audience who like the people who would go to Aspen for a film festival. I think would rate this as a 5 out of 5. I think your average moviegoer, I think this is a 4 out of 5.
Okay. Let us
And I
see.
think I align myself more with the average moviegoer, so therefore I'll go 4 out of 5.
Let's see what Rotten Tomatoes says. Wow. Okay. So this is exactly 88% across the board.
Hmm.
Like critics say 88 and audience says 88. So yeah, I think you're right on the money.
I think it's closer to you, but
Well, 5 out of
I think
5 is
I think
100.
I think I could give it 4 pamphlets, and then a couple of loose pages that fell out.
4 pamphlets and a burnt cake.
One burnt cake. How many pamphlets equal a burnt cake?
The math is still out on this one. I'd say a burnt cake is about half a pamphlet,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
freaking know, man.
that's right. We'll bump it up. 4
Because
pamphlets and a burnt cake.
you have your cake, you just can't eat it, and if you do, it just tastes like shit.
Depends. Do you like your food Cajun style?
Only seafood.
Eh, fair enough.
I don't eat Cajun cake. Actually, is there Cajun dessert now that I think about it?
Probably. Isn't that
Probably
like
no.
beignets?
Yeah, beignets. What the hell? Hush puppies.
Isn't
I
Hush
don't know if
Puppies more
that's
like soul
dessert though.
food?
What?
Isn't Hush Puppies more like soul food than it is Cajun?
Frick, I don't know. I thought it was 20 authentic Cajun desserts. Wow, that's what the hell is that? Cajun cake. Huh. Literally the first thing. Wait a minute. Crushed pineapples in the recipe. Okay. I'd eat that.
All right. Well,
King cake.
I think it's time to choose our movie for next week. And
What's your pick?
so for the folks at home, I texted Jack a couple of days ago and I gave him the choice between Iraq or Afghanistan for our film choice, and he decided with Afghanistan. So with that being narrowing down our choices,
Correction. I went with Saudi Arabia first, but he wouldn't let me.
no, because that wasn't one of the options I gave you. Okay, I'm
Okay.
treating you like a toddler. You get to choose one of two. You don't get to come up with a
Okay.
bullshit. You don't get to come up with a bullshit third answer.
Miranda would have let
Okay.
me had Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, well, she's not on the podcast now, is she?
This is bullshit.
She told me she wants to come on here as a guest and argue the fact that Legally Blonde is a war movie.
See, I was gonna marry a woman eventually, and we could have them come on instead of us for the Legally Blonde episode.
Well, you let me know whenever that happens. So
Yeah, I'll find some girl stupid enough someday.
you always
But
do
anyway,
like
you were saying
yeah. So because we're doing Afghanistan, I've chosen 2013's Lone Survivor,
ah,
which is about
we went
a
to that in
fame.
theaters together, didn't we?
Yes, we did. We saw it in college.
Yeah,
For
with
those at home
Mitch.
who aren't familiar, it is a film starring Mark Wahlberg and follows a group of Navy SEALs that endure a last stand battle in the against the Taliban. So that'll be
Yeah,
next week's film.
or as Mark Wahlberg calls it, Lone Survivor.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to end up talking about the fact that they got Mark Wahlberg to play a guy from Texas. So
Yeah, Bostonian.
didn't didn't translate really well if I remember,
No,
but
no,
I
but you got
do
to have that star
remember.
power.
Yeah, I do remember enjoying the film. So we'll see how it aged.
You've read the book, haven't you?
Yeah, the book was actually one of my favorites when I was in high school.
Wish I could read.
Yeah, if you could, it'd be an interesting read for you.
Well, ooh, actually, you want to get Mitch on this if he's available?
Yeah, I'm curious what movie he would pick, but absolutely.
Shit, I was gonna say have him come and talk about it because he was there with us that when we went to see Lone
For a second, I
Survivor.
thought you were going to say he was there. I'm like, no, he wasn't, motherfucker. Like,
You don't know.
this happened in 2005. He was in
He was
elementary
like
school.
10 or 11.
Man, military just keeps recruiting younger and younger these days.
Yep. He lied about his age. Slipped through the cracks. But yeah, let's. I think that's about
Yeah,
it.
sounds good. Do you have anything else?
I do not.
Alrighty, well, if you enjoyed the show, please leave a review. The stars do matter. If you are looking for some additional content, memes, and whatnot, we are on both Facebook and Instagram at the Armchair Commanders Podcast. We also have a YouTube channel called the History Apprentice channel. If you don't like the fact that it has a different name, deal with it. Uh, we've greatly appreciated you guys joining us. If I'll just cut this part out. Until next week, I've been John,
And I'm Jack.
and we will catch you on the next episode.
Bye.